Welcome to Plastic Model Mojo, a podcast dedicated to scale modeling, as well as the news and events around the hobby. Let's join Mike and Kentucky Dave as they strive to be informative, entertaining, and help you keep your modeling mojo alive.
Happy May, Mojovia, and welcome to episode 140 of Plastic Model Mojo. Dave, how you doing tonight?
All right. Wife cashed a winning ticket on the Derby, so all is right in Kentucky.
Well, it's also the 4th of May, so may the 4th be with you, all our Star Wars geeks out there.
Yep. As a matter of fact, I was talking to Jim Bates this afternoon, and he was at the museum out there, the Air Museum out there, and they were putting on
I saw that. He posted some pictures of some models some of the club had put on display out there for May the 4th.
And it was just more than models. They were having the reenactors out there and activities, and really a great time. And you love to see stuff like that.
Oh, good. Glad to see Jim out and about doing it.
Me too. That's exactly what I told him.
Well, Dave, what is up in your model sphere, my friend?
Well, besides going to Derby parties and besides my wife cashing a winning Derby ticket, it's hard to talk about. Up in Indianapolis, there was a individual man who died, and to say that he had one of the finest collections of a library focused on mostly naval military history, but it was much more wide-ranging than that. One of the finest collections I have ever seen in my life. And obviously he was survived by a widow who, like all widows, is faced with, how do I get rid of all of this stuff?
How do you disposition all that?
Yes, how do you do that?
If they've not had a plan.
That's right. We all need to make plans so that our spouses don't go through this. Well, she had an individual, a friend, family friend, who had spent about 9 months helping to liquidate things, helping to sell books and all. And Jeff Inch High Groves, got in contact with this guy, and then he and a couple other people went and made purchases from this library. But even their purchases at super discounted rates did not begin to put a dent in the size of this collection.
Did they offer a top-end estimate of how many volumes are in this thing?
It's 2 full rooms full of bookcases packed together so tightly you have to walk down them sideways. I'll post a couple of pictures I took on the dojo so you all can see this. But after spending about 9 months liquidating a tiny fraction of this library, just because it was so huge, basically he had, the individual who was helping the widow had a deal to sell the entire collection, and it fell through. And after almost a year, rather naturally, this lady simply wants her basement back, wants it all cleared out. And basically, the guy who was helping her was like, I'm going to have to call a dumpster and just pulp all of this stuff. Jeff, to his everlasting credit as both a modeler and a librarian, close to my heart, begged the guy and said, please don't do that. Give me a little time to organize a rescue mission. So Jeff reached out to me. Jeff reached out to Bish, the vendor, John Bishop, and 1 or 2 other people. Oh, and this guy also had a collection of war games, a collection of video laser discs, musical albums, 33 vinyl, CDs, unbelievable. So in any event, Jeff reached out to me and a couple other people, and the widow just wanted us to come in and take as much as we wanted and find good homes for it. No charge, no nothing. Just come in, take what you
make it go away.
Make it go away. And if you can find a good home for it, that would make her feel better. So I drove up to Indy, met Inch at Culver's. We had a nice little lunch, then went over to this house where I spent 3.5 hours and took a ton of books. Filled my, I drive a Volvo XC60.
Maybe literally a ton.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you could feel the car drove way differently on the way back.
Front wheels barely touching the ground.
It's amazing.
Like an overloaded pickup truck.
It was amazing. But in any event, I cleaned out a bunch of these books. Inch took a bunch more. John Bishop took some, and then some of the other people. And we still have not put a huge dent in this collection. But we did rescue a lot of really good and valuable books, some of which, I'm going to keep in my collection because they're things that interest me. But a lot of this stuff I am going to try and be rehoming. And, I may post a few on the dojo if people are looking for some stuff. But it was a surreal 3.5 hours. I mean, I pride myself on, like I said, I joke around here that I am a librarian who models occasionally. I pride myself in having seen a whole lot of military history books. And I was going through these shelves and it was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen that before. I wasn't aware of that book after book after book. And like I said, it was one of the finest private collections that I have ever seen in my life. And, Jeff and myself and John Bishop and some other people are going to rehome as much of it as we can. I don't know. I mean, I think eventually a fair amount of that stuff is still going to get pulped. I'm reaching out to the Indie Club to try and get some of their people over there. And Jeff's going to reach out to one or two more of his contacts, and maybe we can get some more of it rescued. But, oh my Lord, the one lesson I think we all came away from is, organize your stuff, because this guy had a really great collection, but it was utterly unorganized. The books on the shelves, you would occasionally encounter like half a shelf where all of them were the same subject, like Pearl Harbor. But then you'd encounter another shelf, and book to book, there was no rhyme or reason. So organize your stuff, guys. And I'm preaching to myself on this as much as anybody, because I need to get way better organized. And number 2, make a plan. Do not burden your spouse at the time of your passing. And let's face it, statistics are statistics. Most of us are going to die before our better halves. And you need to make a plan so that when you go, she doesn't have to worry about it. She just calls whoever you have given the plan to, and they execute the plan, whatever that is. Everything goes to the model club. Everything goes to some club members who take it and vend it to try and generate cash for the widow, or whatever it is. I don't care what your plan is. Make a plan, because no plan really puts a lot of extra stress on your spouse who's already lost you. And this lovely lady, I mean, she had, it was her husband's collection. She wanted to see something happen to it to preserve it. But by the same token, after 9 months and the basement is still 99% full, I understand why she was ready just to get rid of it all. So please make a plan. So that's what's up in my model sphere, Mike.
Not bad. I'm curious to see what the haul was.
Oh, well, I will send you pictures. Seriously, the weight was so much that the car drove noticeably different on the way back. And I would bet that my gas mileage went down
probably
significantly as well. So
Ruthie just rolled her eyes and shook her head.
Yeah. We better best less said about that, the best. So we'll get through that. In any event, so what was up in your model sphere?
Well, I had to miss out on that. I'd like to ridden up with you and partaking in that, but what in the cards?
You'd have been strapped to the roof on the way back, because the front seat, the passenger seat, was completely full.
Well, so I'd had a rainy day to up and back to Cincinnati, and it's just an exhausting day, and I had crap to do around here. So what in the cards? But my model sphere.
Yes.
I got some inspiration from our last guest, Jake McKee, and he was talking about researching the Clubmobile.
Right.
And I was eating that up because I knew exactly what he was doing there and how it was going down, because I've done it before several times.
Yep.
And you go down these rabbit holes, and all of a sudden you're faced with a left or right turn, and it just goes down and down, and you meet some people, and somebody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows something. And that's just the way it works.
Yeah.
Well, I'm like, if Jake can build this Clubmobile, I can get this Reba Botan thing moving. This is stupid. This is
the Hungarian truck.
Yeah, this is all me being lazy and not putting any effort into this and whatever. So it's a Facebook page, and it's a publisher.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's called Huns on Wheels, and they're all the books they promote on there are all Hungarian subjects.
Oh, wow. Huns on Wheels.
Yes.
Okay. When I hear Hun, I think German, but I got it. Huns on Wheels.
So they've done all these books on the more prominent, the Toldi and the Turan and some of the Seba armored car. The ones that have been kitted primarily, are the ones they've been focusing on. That makes a lot of sense. But I'm slogging through this Botan project, and I kind of lost my contact at the Reba company, and not gotten a response back yet from them after reaching out again.
Yeah.
Also after Jake's appearance on the show. But I was like, man, they got to know somebody that knows somebody that knows something. So I messaged them through Facebook Messenger, through their Facebook page, and it took a few days, but they got back with me and they put me in contact with someone. A couple of guys have been creating a 3D model of the truck, kind of like what I'm doing.
Right.
And I don't know what stage it's in, but there's a printed book conceptually in the works. I don't know if it'll ever come to fruition or what, but that's kind of where it is right now. Right. They've kind of done this thing. And so I'm at the front end of the conversation with these guys, one of them in particular. So thanks, Jake. Thanks for reminding me how I'm supposed to do things, and we'll see where this goes. Interestingly, though, the one part that has me stuck right now in the chassis is one they kind of had to gloss over and guess themselves. So, still some work to be done, but we'll see what else they have that might be of interest to me. But this project's kind of come back online a little bit, and
well, maybe you all can collab on the.
Maybe we can.
That would be cool.
So that's my model sphere primarily, is putting some new kindling on that and seeing where that fire goes. So we'll see.
Well, good. Since we're recording, I know you've got a modeling fluid, maybe one left over from a derby party or something,
or a birthday.
That's right. It was your birthday recently. What did the birthday boy get?
The birthday boy got a Wolcott bottled in bond.
Oh, wow.
Which is, I need to go look at the distiller. I don't know who makes it.
Uh-huh.
they've got it in spades at Total Wines. Maybe a Total Wine kind of deal. I don't know.
A collab.
Probably. I've had Walcott featured before, but not this one. This is the bottled and bond with the blue label, but that's what I got. What do you have?
Well, I actually am doing one of my rare repeats. I have from the brewer in your town, Mirror Twin Brewing, the West Coast India Pale Ale called Two-Way Street.
That's going to be hoppy out the wazoo.
Yes, and I've had it once before, as I said, and the lovely wife brought it home again from Trader Joe's beer and wine and liquor store.
You get her a checklist.
Yeah, I should. And you know, I was not overly impressed the first time, so I want to give it another chance because, you know, I think you always probably ought to give it another chance. Oh, by the way, Wolcott is from Barton 1792 distillery.
Oh, did you just look it up?
Yes, I did. No, I knew that. I pulled it out of the top of my head.
No, yeah.
I looked it up. So I'll let you know how this goes down to the end at the end of the episode.
All right. Well, the listener mail is slipped back into moderation.
Okay.
So we're not inundated and we're not want either.
Okay.
So a good spot. So we should
Yes.
probably get into the listener mail, Dave.
Yep.
All right. Well, first up from Dallas, Georgia is Bill McCullough. And he sent us a list of things folks can do while attending AMPS or, you know, adjacent to those travels.
Right.
Of course, Yuengling Brewery is around there somewhere. So that's going to be on draft about everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Which is, it's not
It's
a
good
bad
beer.
thing.
It's good beer.
And just east of Harrisburg is Fort Indiantown Gap, which is now a Pennsylvania National Guard training site. He says there's a few interesting static displays there. So if you want to go to AMPS and you're coming from a direction, unless you get to Fort Indiantown Gap or either coming or going, there's apparently something to see there. There's a EC-130 Commando Solo.
Oh, wow.
There's a TF-102
Nice.
and an M12 GMC.
All right. Well, there had to be something with an AMPS tie-in, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
These are all on the main road across from the airfield, and also along the way is Moose's LZ, a great place to find quality modeling fluid and some of the best burgers in the Fort Indiantown Gap area. There you go. In addition, Dave, an hour east of Camp Hill in Reading, Pennsylvania, is the Mid-Atlantic Air Museum. The Mid-Atlantic Air Museum, Dave, has a great collection of civilian and military aircraft, but the must-see attraction is their P-61.
Oh, wow.
Which is currently being restored to flyable condition. He's seen it several times over the years and really misses a chance to visit this museum when he's in the area. And he's provided a link, which we'll put in the show notes, but that's a Black Widow, right?
That indeed it is.
Yeah, that'd be interesting one to see flying again.
Yes, it would.
He also mentions Gettysburg is very close, but it's a very hard thing to experience on a day trip. It's just too much.
Yep.
He tried that once and barely scratched the surface. A weekend was barely enough. So, you know, you're going to need a 3 days there at least. And we mentioned Antietam, which he reminds us of, but it said not to forget Harper's Ferry.
Yes. Harper's Ferry is beautiful. If you've never been through Harper's Ferry, you ought to go just to see it.
And I've been there, and I would recommend that you go very early in the morning because it's just a beautiful time of day to be there.
Oh yeah, up on one of the mountains surrounding the
town. There's a lot of misty kind of sunrise kind of.
Oh.
It's just a really really cool thing. So yeah, if you can do it, go see Harper's Ferry.
Yep.
So we appreciate the recommendations. We always like the adjacent peripheral stuff to do while you're at a major model event. It's kind of become our keynote thing.
By the way, other listeners, if you're up and from that area, food and microbrewery recommendations are greatly appreciated. Many of the folks attending AMPS are going to be there for multiple days. And, you know, while you find a close microbrewery, Mike and I have emphasized this before. go out and experience the town, which means go to multiple restaurants, sample a variety, see the place while you're there. That adds so much to the enjoyment of the contest.
Well, he's got a small bone to pick with us, Dave.
Uh-oh.
During the Wheel of Accidental Wisdom, the question posed was which scale we'd eliminate and why.
Yes.
And he says we eliminated 1/25th scale. Is that right?
No. I said that I would eliminate 1/16th scale, and I would either make armor in 1/24th or 1/25th scale so that it went with all of the civilian vehicle kits. So no, I didn't eliminate 24th or 25th. I actually wanted to promote 24th or 25th by eliminating 16th scale, which I think is too big.
I'll have to look at that again. I tend to agree with you. We might have suggested they pick one or the other and roll with it.
Well, yeah, right, because there is both 24th and 25th scale. I don't remember.
He's a big rig guy, so he's got a lot of 25th scale
Gotcha.
stuff going on. He says his feelings are hurt and he may have to file a hurt feelings report against the dojo.
Oh, no. Well, if he shows up at AMPS, I'll buy him a beer. And we'll call it a settlement.
There you go. Ever the attorney, Dave.
That's right.
Well, thanks, Bill. That was a lot of fun. Well, Dave, up next is Charles Rice, and Charles is from the show he wants us to mention is the Simpsonville 2025 South Carolina Model Association Upstate Model Contest on May 17th. Now, this is primarily a car contest.
Uh-huh.
They got a big swath of car categories, and then the other half is everything else.
Right.
In their respective categories, but not cut nearly as
fine
as the automotive category. Simpsonville, South Carolina.
Hey, and even if you don't build autos, let me tell you, going to a show that is primarily autos, even at IPMS shows, I will spend a fair amount of my time looking at the automotive categories. There is some fantastic work being done. The depth of finish that some of these guys get and the details, it is super impressive. And so even if it is a mainly car contest, go talk to the guys, have a good time. If you don't build cars, but you build something else, take something else to help bulk up their non-car categories. So share and share alike.
This show is going to feature the 6th annual Box Stock Shootout, a showcase for model builders' skills.
Mm-hmm.
Also got the 2025 Stock Car Challenge with individual class awards plus Best Stock Car Award. And the 2025 Big Drag Classic with the top 3 awards plus the top Eliminator Award. So they're really promoting the car side of this, which is fabulous. And they also have armor, aircraft, and ship category, figures, sci-fi, dioramas, and miscellaneous. Again, it's not parsed as fine as the automotive, but take what you got and go support these guys.
Yeah. Now, what was the date of that show again?
The date of that show, Dave, is May 17th, 2025 at the Simpsonville Activity Center, 310 West Curtis Street, Simpsonville, South Carolina. And that is a little south of Greenville in the Greenville-Spartanburg kind of area there.
Gotcha.
So it's, it's not too far from Charlotte, not too far from Atlanta, not too far from Columbia, South Carolina. So we wish them the best of luck and a great show.
Yep, absolutely.
Tom Choi is written in again, and he is empathizing with our situation where, we attended a bunch of shows last year, kind of were unsure how that manifested itself and how that's probably not going to be how we roll this year.
Yep.
Anyway, he's probably going to 3 shows this year. 2 of them he's already attended because we saw him up at Heritage Con.
Yes, we did.
That was one of them.
Yeah, we did.
And he was at Roscoe Turner, which we both ended up missing.
Yep.
But Tom's number 3 show will be Scale Model World at Telford.
Oh, rub it in. Hey, listen, if you can't make quantity of shows, quality of shows counts. And man, Telford's on that bucket list side. That's a bucket list item. So I envy him.
Well, he's got explanation of how all this came to fruition, but I won't get into all that. He's going to be taking this trip, and he's going to be taking it solo.
Oh, wow.
And everyone's on board under his roof. So
Yeah,
good on him.
That's right. You need to get the missus something special.
Well, after the back and forth about losing emails, Ray LeGrand has written in again. And
Okay.
we're getting his loud and clear. And I will say once again, yes, we're getting these. And we don't often respond to a few emails immediately.
Yes.
But most of them we bank for the show. So if you don't hear back, it's because it's going to be covered on the show. So that's the way we roll right now. And when he was talking about he had written about the model with the high fragility, we'll call it that.
Right.
The space subject that he built that was not going anywhere because it was probably going to get broken if he did.
Yep.
So it kind of begged the further question, who do you build for? Competitions or yourself?
Oh, I can answer that one real easy. I build for myself. Now, I will tell you, when I was younger and first started going to model contests back in the 80s, I was more into competition. And so while I didn't necessarily build for the competition, I certainly cared more about the competition. And I've seen, by the way, that's a progression a lot of modelers go to when they get into the hobby. But I have seen it ruin some modelers where they get so wound around the pole on contest results that it ruins the hobby for them.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you don't want to do that. You do not want to. Contests are fun. Contests are great. It's good if you win at a contest. It's a nice validation that you built a nice model and that it was award worthy on that day on that table. And take that and do with it what you will, but don't let building for competition ruin you.
Well, I will use that to suggest that when you're building for competition, I don't think this is an either or. I think it's just a different objective.
Yes, I agree.
If you're building for competition, you're still building for yourself, but you're trying to get something else out of it.
Right.
Other than just building it to do it.
Right.
Either some sort of validation or whatever.
Right. Maybe you're testing your skills to see if you can pull something off and have it be award worthy.
True. And also some people get wrapped up in it. It becomes part of their identity.
Yes, that's true.
And that's probably not a good place to be for long anyway.
Yep.
And like you said, we've been through it. I've certainly been through it. You know my story, and I've told it on here too many times. But yeah, now I don't care. I am truly in doing things for myself at my own pace and just could give a rip about anything else. But took me a while to get here.
Yep.
Or back here.
Back here.
Yeah, back here. Good question, Ray. And I hope you figure out how to get that Jupiter C somewhere.
Yes.
I'm sure a lot of people would like to see it.
Yep.
But we completely understand. From Covina, California, Dave, Steve Berktold, and he wants to know if we know about any person or service that you can send old decals to that can copy them onto a better quality material because they're expired, they've given up the ghost, they're yellow, they're gross, they're brittle, fragile, whatever. The short answer is no. I don't know anyone who does that generally. What I would suggest is you go watch a few videos from Greg's Models in the UK.
Yes, he manages to take some very, very old decals and get them to work.
No, he takes some very old decals and copies them on something.
Right. Well, he does that
new
too.
Ones.
Yeah.
He does it a lot, and I'm really curious what he's doing. I suspect it's a scanner and a color laser printer.
I would suspect
on the right paper, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Greg's Models, I would recommend that YouTube channel anyway.
Yes, it's a great channel.
But if you're curious, I would reach out. I don't have an email address, but there might be one in his channel somewhere.
Well, you can comment on his videos and ask him the question.
You could do that too.
Yeah.
But if there's an email, if you put an email in there and folks can use it, that's even a more direct line. But either or, generally, yes, I would reach out to Greg of Greg's Models and see what he's doing there. And then I would give you a clue as to if it's something you would want to pursue on your own, or if you know someone else who has the equipment, maybe you just go get the right decal paper and somebody can help you out there. But it'd be a step in the right direction. Well, Dave, that is the end of the email side of things. What's going on with the direct messages?
Well, we had a fair number of direct messages. First is Martin Pieta. He remembered the episode we did with Jeff Inch High Groves, where Jeff mentioned that due to some medical issues and medicine that he was taking, that he couldn't drink alcoholic drinks at the present time. And Martin likes Blue Moon, and he just encountered the fact that Blue Moon is now making a non-alcoholic Blue Moon. And he bought some. He tried it out. He said it was indistinguishable from regular Blue Moon and thought that Jeff might like that as a non-alcoholic alternative. And Martin, since I saw Jeff today and had lunch with him, I passed along your suggestion, and he was very flattered that you thought of him and wanted to reach out and help. So he said to tell you thank you. Next is our friend Chris Wallace, who posted a video of his build of the Testors F19 and 48 scale that I was involved in getting to him at HeritageCon, much to my eternal embarrassment and shame of having supplied him with that kit. And in his video, he manages to reference, to my eternal shame, that I'm the one who got that kit to him. So I want it to go away. Don't mention it anymore, Chris. Our friend in England, Neil Gilborn, sent photographs from a place that he'd never been before, but was just 10 miles up the road from him, a bar called the Dam Busters Inn. And of course, it's the logo is the image of one of the Dam Buster Lancasters dropping the Barnes Wallace bomb. And in the bar, they have a full-size Lancaster tire, which, by the way, is huge. And
using it for a table?
No, it actually was up as a display. And he said that, he had it had been there all the time. It's only 10 miles away, but he'd never gone to it. He found out about it. He went, and he says they have really nice modeling fluid.
Well, good.
Warren Dickinson contacted me because, as you know, I had mentioned that Fine Molds is doing one or more 72nd scale A6M5s in addition to the ones they're doing in 48 scale. And Warren was querying me. He was thinking he was going to go ahead and pre-order them because a lot of Fine Molds kits tend to be very limited release, and he didn't want to miss them, so he was thinking that he was going to go ahead and pre-order them. And I'm not so sure that's not a great idea. So, and that's what I told him. I may well jump in on that just because I don't want to miss out on those. Ron Smith, he and I had a really nice, pretty long DM interaction in regard to organizing your hobby room. And so we had we had talked about that on a previous episode. So we had a general discussion, and then he sent photographs of the different ways that he organized different things, paints, tweezers, nippers, whatever. Much of his organizational items were homemade. But the one thing that he and I both agree on that is essential for your hobby room for organizational purposes, and that's a P-Touch label maker. It's super important, and you've got all this stuff in all these drawers and stuff like that, and having that P-Touch and being able to label everything is essential to good organization. Finally, Jared Nuss reached out because we had talked about how we really liked the display only models at Madison, and talked about the different ways to display. And one of the things we were saying was, while the room in Madison for the display models was beautiful, it was separate from the contest area. And frankly, we talked about ways to blend them together, or to at least get them in the same room. And he reached out to tell us that at Hampton, the display models, they call them the tiger meat models, the display models are going to be in the contest room. Now, they're not going to be on the contest tables. They are going to be on separate tables, but they are going to be in the same contest room. So when you go to see and view the contest models, you'll also, without having to go someplace different, be able to see the non-contest entry models.
Well, I think that's great. I think
I do too.
It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Or it might be the solution. I mean, it could be either way. I mean,
sure,
it's more people are going to see them if you do that.
Yes.
And if they have the room to do it that way, that might be even a better way than commingling them on the table, right?
Yep.
At least from the judging standpoint. So
right.
I think that's a great idea. And
as you and I have commented on a number of occasions, I think that contests are evolving, and one of the evolutions is more and more models just being displayed but not competing.
Yep.
And I think that's a wonderful thing.
And at least we've seen on the invitational level that they're evolving to where the word contest might be obsolete.
Yes, you're right.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it from the DM side.
Well, folks, if you want to write into the show, and we hope you want to write into the show, we encourage you to write into the show. You can do it a couple of ways. You can send us an email to plasticmodelmojo@gmail.com, or you can send a direct message via the Facebook Messenger system, and Dave and I will take those and work them into the show and have as much fun as we can answering them. It's a lot of fun for that, and we really appreciate it. In addition to these methods, there's also a give us your feedback link in the show notes that you can use to send us a message that way too. It can be a voice message or a written message or whatever. So we encourage you folks to write into the show. It's a great segment. We get a lot of good content and a lot of good information in it, and we appreciate it very, very much.
Folks, when you're done with this episode, Mike and I would appreciate it if you would rate the podcast on whatever podcasting app you're listening to us on, or if you would go to the rate the show link in the show notes of this episode and rate the episode. It helps us out. It helps us be more visible. In addition, if you have a modeling friend who's not listening to the podcast, we would appreciate it if you would recommend the podcast to them and help them if they need a little technology help to be able to get the podcast, download it, subscribe to it, etc.
Well, in addition to that, we got several other things we'd like for you folks to do. First is check out all the other podcasts out in the model sphere. And that's real easy to do. You can go to www.modelpodcast.com. It's Model Podcast plural. It's a consortium website set up with the help of Stuart Clark from the Scale Model Podcast out of Canada. He's aggregated all the banner links to all the other podcasts out in the model sphere. And it's a one-stop shop to go find them. And you can check them all out, subscribe to them if you like, or do what you want. and it's a great place to check them out. In addition to podcasts, we have a lot of other blog and YouTube friends, content creators out there in the model sphere that we'd like to recommend, some of our friends and favorites. Dave, you already mentioned Chris Wallace, model airplane maker.
Yep.
Has he done a video on that stealth fighter thing?
Yes, he did. And he let everybody know that I was instrumental in getting the model to him. I'm never going to live this down.
And you spent the day with Jeff Inchai Groves,
yes,
digging through the massive book repository.
Yes.
He may have a blog post about that in the future. That'd be interesting.
There will be a blog post about it, I have no doubt. And we got to spend some time talking about what he's got coming up on his blog. So keep an eye on it, guys.
And that blog would be the Inchai Guy blog.
Yes.
A lot of 70-second scale content there. Sprue Pie with Fret, Stephen Lee. Speaking of 70-second scale content, I've been talking to Steve a little bit. I don't think he's going to be at AMPS, but we may see him later in the year, the National Convention, I hope.
I hope he gets down there.
Not too far from him.
Yeah.
Evan McCallum, Panzermeister 36, and boy, I hope he's coming up in the next episode. He just got back from the Motion show in Hungary and had a great time, sounds like. Check out his YouTube channel. And finally, Paul Budzik, Scale Model Workshop on Patreon and on YouTube. He just dropped another little short video with some really insightful commentary in it. So folks need to check that out as well.
If you are not a member of IPMS USA, IPMS Canada, or your national IPMS organization, please join. They're good organizations run by volunteers to help the modeling community. And if you have any interest in armor or post-1900 figures, AMPS, which is having their national May 15th through 17th in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania, consider joining, consider going to the contest. It's a great group of guys who are super dedicated to armor modeling and its related subjects, and I cannot recommend them highly enough. They really are a great group of guys.
Really looking forward to that show.
You and me both, brother.
Plastic Model Mojo is brought to you by Model Paint Solutions, your source for Harder and Steenbeck airbrushes, David Union power tools, and laboratory-grade mixing, measuring, and storage tools for use with all your model paints, be they acrylic, enamels, or lacquers. Check them out at www.modelpaintsolutions.com.
Well, Dave, I was sitting at my bench pondering about all the things I don't like about 3D print models.
Yep.
Then I remembered at Heritage Con, we put one of our little plaques down next to a little Russian tank that had been built by listener Brad Belsheim. I reached out to Brad and learned that he'd built a number of these. So I flat asked him, I mean, what's your experience with this kind of thing? And he told me he'd built quite a few. Surprising number, really, considering my build pace. I would even say embarrassing for me. Brad agreed to come on, and we had a little conversation to him about the ins and outs of these kits and the good and the bad and the ugly, and just what he's experienced, and it's pretty interesting. I get these ideas when things aren't going good at my bench sometimes. And, I've been working on a 3D printed model, not one I've done myself, but purchased STL files.
Right.
And having a little trouble there at times. Not really trouble, but frustrations. And we were up at Heritage Con, and we ran into Brad Belsheim and Dr. Dave Morris, who we see together quite a bit. And Brad has joined us tonight. Brad, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're great. And speaking of Heritage Con, it was good to see you up there. And the reason I kind of came to you with this topic of 3D models and their idiosyncrasies, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but you had an entry up there. That little Russian heavy tank thingy was on the table. And honestly, we've seen a lot of your work over the last several years, and keeps getting better. And I think that one came out really, really well.
Yes, it really did. It was eye-catching.
Thanks, guys.
I reached out to you, and you said you'd had quite a few of these models under your belt, and I just thought it might be an interesting conversation to talk about the various aspects of building these things and the ups and downs and the good and bad. So you up for that?
Absolutely.
Well, let's start with asking you that kit that was on the table. What was it? Where was it from?
Yeah. So it's a Danish, sorry. It's a Dutch 3D print company called RTM, and it's Jan. I don't remember the guy's last name, but it's an MT-25, which was a kind of a typical Russian, the BT-5, BT-7, run on tracks, but you can take the tracks off and run on the wheels, kind of a concept. But if you look at the kit, it's like a mini KV, right? It's like a little
Right.
baby KV. And it is an amazing, I think it's the best 3D print kit I've ever done.
Obviously, it came as a kit. You didn't buy the STL files and
No,
print it yourself?
no, it did not.
Okay.
But I actually hooked up with the guy through Rob Riv, who we all know because he's got that New York accent.
Yeah, he's been pushing that guy pretty good. That's a fairly new company, I think. Fairly new.
Yeah.
Well, you say it's the best 3D kit you've ever built. Well, let's start with the gamut of kits that are out there and then ones you've tackled. How many have you built at this point?
Oh, I it's at least 10. I've built a bunch of SS models, which is a Chinese 3D print company, probably 6 from them. I've built Bovington has a kind of a captive Bovington museum because I know they're kind of stepping back a little bit. So I know the guy who runs the hobby shop at Bovington Tank Museum, which is amazing. We are best friends. I've known him for 20 years. He's an amazing modeler in his own right, Tim Roberts. And he hooked me up with the guy who does some specialized 3D prints for the museum. He did a little Willy print.
Okay.
And great in some aspects, not great in other aspects. But I've also done, if you look at some of Vargas's prints, Vargas models, I'm actually on the box prints, the cover art for some of his kits. And so, yeah, I think I have a lot of experience with a 3D print.
Basically, there are kind of two camps in the design world for the 3D printing kits. There's the one that has a fairly substantial parts breakdown, and then there are the ones who try to print everything in as few parts as they can.
Yep.
I have a preference there. What's yours?
I don't. I think it depends, which is a kind of a non-answer, but I'm in sales, so of course that's.
I was going to say, I thought maybe you were a politician.
Well, you're the lawyer, so you should.
There you go.
But
fair cop.
It really depends. I mean, SS Models does some really amazing stuff with not that many parts. FT Models, which is a Spanish, I think it's FT Models, Spanish company. They're not that great. Not that many parts count, and also not that great of product at the end, I guess. And also the thing with 3D print is the layer lines. At the end of the day, it all comes down to layer lines. And so I've built, I mean, I think the perfect example is I'm totally into British armor. And if you go into everything, all the websites and Facebook pages and whatever, I mean, I'm called the 50 Shades of Green guy.
Yeah.
And so, because I love Commonwealth, I love American armor, World War II, etc. And I think that layer lines is a big issue. And so, if you look at the Matilda 1, right?
Yeah.
FT Models came out with a 3D print. And when it came out, I was like, oh, this is great. But I'd made the resin model version from Accurate Armor, and I thought that was great. And I was like, FT Models is not that great. And then Vargas came out with his kit, and I think that's Vargas's best 3D print kit. It is amazing.
I've got that one. And my kit in particular is going to need a little work, but we'll get into that. It's kind of a different kind of nuance of these models. But why I bring up the trying to print it all in one, which Vargas kind of does. He's one of those guys. I guess as an engineer, where it makes me a little, gives me a little heartburn, I guess I would say, is back to your comments about layer lines. If you print it all in one go with all the detail on it, something in that print is going to be suboptimal.
Yes.
For the layer lines, where if you'd have broken it up, you could have optimized every piece to their best print orientation for the layer line issue. And I think things are easier to handle that way. And this is all my opinion. I've dabbled with a couple. I'm working on one that I've printed myself. So I'm kind of get to play around with that. But the Vargas kit of the Matilda 1, mine had a lot of layer lines on that front plate that holds the idler wheels on the front.
Yes. Yeah. And that's exactly where they are. They're right there. You're absolutely correct.
And the other issue with that kit, at least my copy, was that front plate was warped. So the cylinders, the mounting drums, the hubs for the idlers were towed out. So the forward edges pointed outward. And the issue with 3D printed resins, at least right now with most of them, is the old hot water and bend to fix doesn't really work, in my experience.
It doesn't. However, I've been looking at a bunch of things online, and it still helps, right, with the warm water, but not hot water, because hot water you're not going to do yourself any favors.
So mine was warped, and I had a plan to fix it. I ended up breaking it, so I'm going to have to rebuild that whole front part. But I can do that. I just, unfortunate, my little clumsy hands kind of took care of it for me. But
so what I understand is you downloaded on, because you have your own 3D printer, is you've got that 38T based Kugel
the Kugelblitz, yeah,
Kugelblitz thing,
right? It's not bad. It's got some things about it I would have done differently, even though it's multiple parts. But I'm working through it. I don't think it'll take me that long to finish it. I just got to get to the bench and do it. But I've played around with a lot of print orientations, and I joked maybe on the last episode even it's going to end up being the most expensive model I've ever built, hands down, just because I'm burning through resin and that sort of thing. So
what's your level of print? I mean, you have your own printer, so what is it? It's where are we now in the print level?
Mine is a Formlabs Form 3, which is a commercial printer actually for most people. It is what we had
8K, 12K, 60. What is?
Well, it has a laser scan unit. It's not a DLP printer.
Okay.
So it's a little different than that. The reason I got it secondhand on the cheap. I got it for a really good price, and it's what we use at work. So the learning curve was zero. I mean,
right.
When I got it, I just threw it back together, filled it up, and started messing with it. And honestly, at this point in the game, it like the printers Vargas is using, or any of these other really nice 3D print model makers, they can print circles around my Form 3, absolutely. But I'm not using it that way.
Yeah.
Doing more gross shapes and general shapes and jigs and fixtures and things like that. Will I ever utilize it for other things? Probably. I'm printing this one model on it. It's came out pretty nice, but the small details, there's not that many on it. So I'm kind of lucky in that regard.
Yeah. So my sons, both engineers, they keep threatening to buy me a 3D printer because you're like, well, Dad, we'll figure it out for you. Right. And I mean, I think that's great, because I'm always willing to get free stuff from my kids because I paid for their college. So
there you go.
That's right. It's the least they can do.
That's the least they can do, right?
Yeah,
but
not that much by comparison either.
Yeah, that's right.
They're not that much by comparison. But the thing is it's all about the quality, right? And it's all about like layering and like angling and all that. And that's where RTM, I think, really is amazing. I mean, Jan he's got some really good stuff going on, and he's got a thing coming out, and I can't share it with anybody, but I'm really hoping that he sends me a test print of this and I get to do it because he's got it figured out. He really does.
That's another issue that I think, you talked about the different manufacturers that you built stuff and the varying quality. And I think at least part of that has to do with the fact that the 3D print technology is advancing so quickly
Absolutely.
that you could be cutting edge at the beginning of the year, and by February of the next year, you are hopelessly out of date because the technology moved,
Yeah.
not because of anything you did.
Yeah. It's like electric cars. It's like your battery was the best yesterday and not tomorrow.
Right.
But I will say, so I kind of, went out to some buddies of mine, Dr. Dave, some other guys, and that I really trust and value their opinion. And you're looking at not only 3D print kits, but accessories, light guards for Shermans and light guards for, whatever, 3D print this and 3D print that. And what I get feedback from is, I think of myself as a pretty good modeler. I mean, thanks to you guys for having me on the show and everything. And there's a issue with 3D print is it's so hard to get these. You buy these things, they're not cheap, right? I want to buy Sherman light guards. Cool, right? They're easier than photo etch. Sorry, Riv. And
You're
put
right.
them on,
You're right. He's wrong.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I want to say that over and over again.
Okay. Well, you can send that to him on a loop when this comes out.
Yeah, I will send that on the infinite loop. But it's really hard to get them off of to the old school, the sprues. They're not sprues, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, the support structures.
The support structures, right? And yes, you can warm them up and you can do this and you can do that, but it's hard, right? And they break. And it's a good thing that for some of the companies, I mean, I'm looking at right now I'm in my basement. My dog's looking at me going, what the hell are you talking about?
Who are you talking to?
Yeah. And I'm looking at Heavy Hobby and I'm looking at Sherman guards. And when you open the box, right, you're like, you're going to lose 50% of these. You're going to lose them.
Yeah, they're going to break.
But we spent a lot of money as a modeler on this. And I don't care who you are. I mean, obviously Kentucky Dave makes like $1 billion a year.
Yeah, no, wrong type of lawyer. But see, this is why you need to let your sons buy you a 3D printer. When you can print all of the guards you need, you don't care how many of them break.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that. Yeah. But it's a good point. I mean, it's a good point. And Dr. Dave brought that up. I canvassed a bunch of guys, and that was one of the things. And I agree with that. It's like, it's easier than photo etch, but it's also, how much do I want to spend on this? Right. So I think that's part of the whole 3D print issue or where we are right now in the hobby. And I love the 3D print stuff. I'm looking at, and you guys are coming to Amps Nats, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm working on a Aunt Jemima mine roller right now, and I'm doing a whole bunch of aftermarket stuff. Photo etch, resin. I love to put it all together, right? And I've got some of it is 3D print. I mean, for the light guards, right? And I'm like, wow, that's great. But do they match? I got a really good feedback from somebody. Is sometimes they don't work. They just don't work, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Well, that's the problem you have with any aftermarket. If the designer failed to properly render the copy of the prototype, it doesn't matter how well it's printed or how inexpensive it is. If it doesn't match what's on the real item, it's not useful.
Right.
Which is I think one of the reasons that many of the people who are getting into the 3D print game actually get their own printer and do it themselves because, they have a level of demand for, for want of a better word, for authenticity, for the item on the model matching the item in real life, that they like the ability to have that level of control.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean, you look at the new. Here's a great example: the Mang Kugelwagen with the tracks. Right? It's
Yeah.
If you've seen this kit, actually, I don't do German stuff. If you know me, I'm like I'm Norwegian, so I have a really bad time with the Nazis. And I went to school in Germany and I love Germans, but I have a problem with the other people. So, anyways, that's a cool kit. That's the Kugelwagen with the tracks, and they do the 3D print on the tracks. That's awesome. But I'm like, well, how's that going to work? Right? Is the mass production 3D print going to be better? Maybe, maybe not.
Well, as far as tracks go, I know our friend Evan McCallum, Panzermeister 36, he has done several YouTube videos comparing all of the or at least some of the different 3D print companies.
Yeah.
And just like any other thing, the quality varies widely, the assembly varies widely, etc. But the price point, I mean, prior to 3D printed tracks, you were either getting the metal Fruhl tracks or you were getting some aftermarket resin thing.
Yeah.
And the fact that with 3D printing, the price point actually drops way below what the previous options were.
It does.
And I think it's only going to go down.
I got to tell you, I mean, like for Soviet tanks, World War II Soviet tanks, I mean, Fruhl is like, the weight. It's so awesome. Yeah. It's just the best. I don't care if I'm poking holes in my fingers, putting those little rods in there. I don't care. It's the best.
Well, you talk about breaking things, which, I talked about breaking something that's a little more significant than a light guard. But is there anything you do or have had to learn differently working through that many different 3D kit brands and things that are sort of similar to what you're doing with an injection molded kit, or maybe even a polyurethane cast resin kit, that are kind of unique to a 3D printed kit and the materials they're made out of?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm an old school. I loved Accurate Armor. Oh my God, I loved Accurate Armor. I used to buy all these conversion kits for them, whatever. And so you got them and you basically put a mask on because you were going to like sand off so much crap, right? Or you're going to die. But I think the thing with 3D print is you just have to be so careful with, they're so brittle, right?
I notice it because of my engineering background, but sometimes when I cut a support structure off at the very end where it meets the part, it gets what is a classic brittle fracture. Instead of cutting through, it snaps. And when it snaps, like you got a round support structure. So it forms this 45-degree angle cone where you cut it, where it broke off in brittle fracture instead of cutting it. And it leaves a divot in the part. It leaves a divot on the side you want to keep. Yep. And it's like, damn it. So I cut all this off. I don't know, either it's going to break. How do you, is there anything you can do you mentioned warming things up. Does that help on some things?
Warming up does help a lot. I will say that. It's also kind of your like tools, right? So I love, what's the Japanese company that makes kits and tools?
Fine Molds?
No, Zukimori.
Okay. Yeah.
Tsukimori's got their clippers are the best, right? So warm up the thing and use that clipper. But again, it might work, it might not. That's the sad part of it, right? We are where we are in this hobby.
Well, what do you use as fill material when you've got a divot or an imperfection in a 3D kit? What do you use to fill it and blend it?
I use Perfect Plastic for everything.
Okay.
Now, which one's that?
That's the I'm looking at it right now. It's Perfect Plastic Putty. It's water based. It's awesome. It's user friendly, which is actually it's like stupid people like me. You can just use it, rub it on there, and let it dry, and then go over it with a Q-tip, and it's awesome.
Well, you have no problem with it adhering to the 3D printed material?
Nope, it'll adhere to anything.
So you don't have to prep the surface of the 3D printed material to take the
No, it'll actually adhere to basically resin or classic plastic or 3D print or whatever. I mean, it's not a 1-to-72 scale 0, but whatever.
Yeah, well, I know. That's all right. We forgive.
Now, on this flak panzer, I've printed myself. One thing I've noticed as I build it, I'm doing some spot priming with one of the Mr. Surfacers, probably 1500 thinned out with MLT. I don't think it sticks to that 3D print resin. It does like it does plastic at all. It's got when you sand it, it does some things I don't like sometimes.
It doesn't, but on the other hand, if you let it set, it's okay. And by okay, I mean it's okay.
Well, before speaking of which, that related question to my last one, do you treat your 3D printed kit at all prior to painting? In other words, with a plastic kit, there's some people who wash it before, with water with a little Dawn. There are people who, wipe it off with denatured alcohol. There's all sorts of different things. For 3D print with the current set of resins that we have, do you do anything to it prior to painting it?
I spray it with water, literally just water.
Okay.
It should have been rinsed in alcohol anyway. So
yeah, just a little bit of water just to make sure it's got nothing on it because it might, right?
Mm-hmm.
But water's fine. I mean, if you want to be OCD about it, just a little bit of, denatured water. But yeah, water's good.
And you haven't had any adherence problems at all to any of the different kits you've built?
No, actually. But I do love to be a primer. I do a lot of stuff of photo etch, plastic, resin, and multimedia. And I do that. I put it all together, and I will totally put a primer on that. Well, if I lived in England, I would do Halford's primer, but that's a different story. But yeah, a primer on top of that is awesome. You will take care of everything you need to take care of.
What are you doing for layer lines in place, especially places you can't sand? Now, this kit I'm working on, it had some in the ribbing on the front fenders. Well, the whole front fender had some layer lines in it. I couldn't just sand it because of the ribbing in the fenders, unless I just wanted to go rebuild the whole thing. One thing I've done there is really thinning out Mr. Surfacer, something like that, to where it's like it's thin as a paint, really, and then just putting that on itself levels. And I've gotten pretty good results with that for filling layer lines in kind of odd places, but sometimes they're hard to get to.
Well, so one of my favorite tools, which I just bought. When I say just bought, it was like months ago, is to display that little electric sander tool.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, the little display.
Jesus came down and gave me this tool. It's great. It's great. Get one. Oh my God.
Do you apply something to the 3D print material before you try to sand away the layer lines? Or are you sanding the 3D print material itself?
Yeah, it's called spit.
Okay, well, so you wet sand.
Yes.
For those people who don't live in Cleveland, wet sanding with water.
And Kentucky Dave, I do not live in Cleveland.
Well,
I live far west of Cleveland.
But somebody else who uses spit, yeah.
yeah, I have many friends from the greater Cleveland, Akron area. So anytime I can poke fun at them, I will do so.
But yeah, that's an amazing tool. That's a great tool. It's a great 3D print layer tool.
Okay.
I would recommend that for people who love 3D prints, as I do. So yeah, get one.
Let me ask you another question. We were talking about the variation in quality among the different manufacturers.
Yep.
And we were talking about how the technology is progressing very rapidly. Now, you were talking about your current favorite manufacturer with RTM?
RTM, yes.
RTM. And you were talking about how high quality it is compared to what you've built previously.
Yep.
Do you think that has to do with a progress in the quality of both the resin and the printer? Do you think it has to do with the skill of the designer? Obviously, a combination of both. How much of that do you think is just natural progression, and how much is it that this particular manufacturer is paying very close attention to his quality control?
I think that's a tough question, because I think Jan is awesome. I think it's a quality, it's a technology advances all the time, right? Like, back in the olden days, we, to me, it was the best, and then they weren't, and they were, and they weren't, and whatever. But I think that it's a question of your printers. It's a question of your designer. It's a question of your software. The FT models, if I'm quoting them right, I was so disappointed by their quality, especially for the cost. I was like, wow, I paid this for that? Nah.
It's like the old resin days.
Well,
Yeah.
and that brings up a separate but related issue. If you're buying a 3D print kit from a new manufacturer, one you haven't dealt with before, these things aren't cheap.
Nope.
Talk about your recent disappointment. Quality levels vary. Are you willing to buy a pig in a poke? Do you just take a flyer sometimes, hoping that it turns out to be a good kit?
Yeah, Kentucky Dave, I will totally tell you that is absolutely true. So I am if you look at the stuff I've built, I love weird. When I was in California, I grew up in California. I used to build a lot of stuff when I was back in San Diego, and they used to call me the odd man out. So there's a track cum tank that the Kiwis developed in the war, which was
you mean the oh God, what's the name of it? The one the Vargas does a kit of it.
Nope, not the Vargas kit.
Oh,
no.
Okay.
No, this is more like the German, or actually Austrian tank cum track, and it was a really cool kit. And there's actually it looks great on internet.
Doesn't everything,
right? It's $150, which I don't care. I'm lucky enough that would be a fine. And I have a Kiwi good buddy who is down there, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it looks really cool, but I have no experience with this 3D printer, right? And so even at my point, I'm like, I'm not $150 plus shipping. I don't know.
I get it. There's a naval catapult that S&S makes that, man, it's calling my name. It's like 100. $50, like the catapult and the gantry and the whole aft section of the deck of the ship.
Right.
That is exactly what I was thinking of when I asked him this question.
It's actually, it's not the dollars. Well, I mean, none of us want to throw away money, but is it cool? Is it great? I want to see it, right? Show me the actual product, right?
Well, and if you spend the money and it turns out to be less than top quality, let's be kind, then you really feel the disappointment. It's not so much that the money went away, although that hurts. It's the fact that what you were thinking you were getting doesn't turn out to be what you actually got.
Right.
Or Mike's talking about with the S&S, this rear battleship section. I mean, you have no opportunity unless you can find somebody who has already taken the leap.
Right.
I mean,
right.
And these things are, and Mike and I talk about this all the time. These companies are popping up left and right. If you go on ScaleMates, I would bet that fully half of the announcement on ScaleMates now are 3D printed items.
And they're not cheap. They're not cheap.
Nope, absolutely.
Well, speaking of vetting, is there a social media outlet for just 3D printed model construction yet? Has anybody got anything like that out there? Where
I wish there would be, because I would jump on that. I mean, and that's the thing, and that's why I was really privileged I was honored that you guys reached out to me, because it's like there's so many products out there and so many vendors and so many this and so many that, and exactly, so inconsistent.
Well, and you see that same thing in injection molded manufacturers.
Yeah, it's called Academy.
Well, okay. I was not going to name names, but yeah, there's an example where you can have a manufacturer who turns out really nice stuff, and then stuff,
crap.
and the thing you can do that you encounter with a traditional injection molded manufacturer, same thing you encounter with these new 3D manufacturers. If you buy one of their kits and it turns out and it's really good, then that becomes your level set for thinking, okay, kits from this manufacturer or 3D printer are good stuff. So when you see the next item on offer, you are much less hesitant to take the leap. And then it turns out that this manufacturer's quality is not consistent.
Well, and that's the problem. I mean, I think it's for everyone, right? It's like, hey, look, we all love Tamiya. If you don't love Tamiya, you're a fascist. I mean, let's right? I mean, they're just the best, okay? You look at like Trumpeter. Okay, but sometimes yes and sometimes no.
Right.
You look at Dragon back in the day. Well, you're gonna like mortgage your house and then get maybe something which is cool, but it's got 47,000 pages of really bad directions.
Yeah. And there's many parts that you don't use on the model.
Well, that's 95,000.
Well, and speaking of that, to take it back to 3D printing, are most of the kits you've gotten, do they come with any instructions?
Well, and that's a good point, Kentucky Dave, my attorney.
Yeah. Hey, I haven't got the retainer yet. Let's not put the cart before the horse.
So, RTM has great, short, to the point directions. They are my faves. They're my faves right now. They're awesome. If you look at some others, like SS models, they're focused on the, here's a decent kit, and it should be simple and 3D print and just go for it. And why would you want directions? But, and I'm not, and this sounds not politically correct, but it's just a little Chinese method. It's like, what's the point, right? So I've got this really great kit from SS Models of this American assault tank. I had to go to Tim, my buddy at Bovington, and he took a bunch of pictures of inside of the tank and the outside of the tank and all this stuff. So I was like, could figure out how does it really work, right? And that's the problem, is these 3D print companies, they have some great stuff, but they also have like no directions. It's like old school 15 years ago resin kits.
So you say that RTM actually does supply you with a set of directions in the
Yes,
kits?
their directions are actually quite good. They're simple. They're to the point. Here it is. Do it.
I'm excited to learn what their new thing's going to be. So I'm not asking you to tell me, but
Well,
if you're excited, I'm excited because that little heavy tank really. And I love Soviet armor, but I'm pretty much like the more operational production level stuff. And
yeah. So this is just a little bit of I'm really hoping that they give me the pre-production one and I get to build it, because Riv and I know this guy Jan at RTM, and it's a one-off Soviet tank because I love Soviet crap. Well, I'm 50 Shades of Green. Here I am.
Now, I know we've been talking mostly 3D printed armor kits, and we talked about the kits and the number of parts breakdown and all, and whether they come with any instructions or good instructions. Do any of the 3D kits you buy come with decals? Or are you on your own for all of those with all of the kits that you bought?
I have not bought a 3D print kit with decals or decals or decals,
Right.
as our northerner friends would say.
Well, the Vargas Matilda comes with them.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're wrong.
Okay, well, there's that.
Well, that's a different question as to whether or not they come with decals.
It doesn't surprise me to be on your own. That's a whole different ball game, which reminds me what I was going to ask. Some manufacturers, you just seem to tell that they have a vested interest in the subjects they're actually kidding versus just pumping crap out that doesn't exist now that they can make a buck on. We just bought these. I bought 2 of them and gave one to Dave because I owed him money on something else, and that's the way friends work. It was.
We all do that. No, I owe you money. Here, take this.
Yes. It was F&A out of Poland. It was a little WZ-34 Polish armored cars.
Oh, I've seen that.
That kit is gorgeous, but man, it is. You're going to break something. It's just, it's like the wheels are separate and the turret's separate, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And oh man.
Well, even at the aftermarket stuff. So I'm sitting here right now, and I'm looking at what I'm gonna, because you guys will see this at AmpsNats, and it's the Tamiya 148 scale Stewart, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've got the GT, I believe it's called the GT resin skeleton tracks, right, on it, and it's really cool. It matches. It looks cool. Whatever. But what are we gonna do with this? As far as like, is it okay to enter this as a kit by itself, or is it aftermarket or whatever? Right? Where are we with that?
Well, that's another good question. I don't think it's been too big an issue on the armor side, but do these things need their own category? I guess where this really gets to be, I don't think it's a problem, but there have been people who think it's a problem. This category that's coming around to be called scratch printed, where the modeler's actually doing the 3D design and printing it themselves. And okay, is it scratch built? Sorta, but not exactly. The craftsmanship's different. So what do you do with it?
Yeah. I mean, what won the best of IPMS this last year was basically a 3D print kit, right? That
Oh, the spaceship from
right?
We got to see that a lot. That's he's amazing, by the way.
It's amazing.
Yes,
well,
it is.
He's a really neat guy with a really interesting story.
And it won also in Europe.
Not surprised. Yeah, he was at Wonderfest, and
he won at Wonderfest, and he's taken that thing to a number of contests, and it has done well at all of them simply because it is and he did all of that. Other than the electronics that light it, I mean, every bit of that was designed and printed by him.
Right. It's effing amazing.
And I agree with Mike. It's not scratch built in the way that you think of traditionally, a set of plans and a stack of styrene, but it certainly is.
It's scratch designed and printed, which is not just, stick it in the printer and let it come out. You have to think about it. You have to think about the support structures and the way you print it. I mean, there is a lot to it. Is every bit, while it's a completely different set of skills, it is every bit as creative as the guy who sits down and scratch builds a model using a set of plans and styrene and brass rod and all. Right. I mean, it absolutely is. It's when I saw that, I was like, oh my God.
Well, you've kind of answered this in bits and pieces along the way here, but and I think I know what you're going to say, but we'll let you say it in your own words. What is the big drive for you to go down this whole lane of pursuing these kits for your builds? What's the attraction? Is this just the proliferation of these oddball subjects?
Yeah, I've always been the odd man out. I mean, if you look at before AFV Club came out with their own bridging Churchill, I bought the Resicate one, right?
Yeah.
And spent way too much money, and then you could buy it for way less, right, in plastic.
Well, you threw yourself on that project for the rest of us.
That's exactly right. Thank you, Kentucky Dave. Yes, I made it better for everyone else.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's just, I love 3D because it gives you stuff that no one's ever going to make anywhere else, right? It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Well, and with 3D, you do have the hope that almost anything will be done. In other words, back when we were limited to injection molded, you could have your hope that the fairy fruit bat was going to be molded by Airfix. It was the one-off that you particularly wanted, but you knew that there was no way that was ever going to happen. Now with 3D print, even more than resin, with 3D print, the odds of seeing any single one-off go up dramatically, just because you got to have one guy who has an interest in that item and a 3D printer and a CAD program and time.
And some talent.
Well, I was just talking about getting a kit. I wasn't describing a good kit. But yeah, I mean, that's ultimately your hope, is that he's good, he or she are good, and you get the one item that you always wanted, but you weren't ever going to put that time in.
Well, yeah, Matilda 1. I mean, I love the Matilda 1. Well, I love all British armor.
I love it too. When I saw that one, I was like, okay, I'm definitely buying that one. I hope it doesn't suck.
let's just say this up front. Brad loves British armor.
Well, and you can't not love the Matilda 1. It's so ugly. It's
ugly. It's pretty.
Yes, exactly.
But here's the thing. What are we missing? What I want is an awesome 3D print or whatever of the Australian Sentinel.
Which there are existing copies of the real thing around.
Exactly. So please, God, give me the Sentinel.
Well, and again, that's not unlike if we were back in the injection molded only era. That would be a plea that we would all laugh at because
Right. Exactly.
because it's never
Yeah.
going to happen.
It's
Tamiya
never going to
isn't
happen.
right. Tamiya isn't coming out with a Sentinel, but
Nope.
the odds are sooner or later, if you hang around long enough, somebody's going to do that.
Yeah, it's moving up the universal list.
Exactly.
What have we covered?
I hope we've covered a lot of stuff. You guys have been great.
We've covered a lot of stuff. You've said it. You're going to be at AMP, so we're going to be at AMP. So we're looking forward to that. Anything you bring in a 3D kit? What do you got going on right now?
I am bringing the MT25 and I'm bringing the M205 in 48 and 35th scale because Jan's sending me the 48th scale one, and that'll be great because I love that kit. Also, he's got something special coming up, and I'm really hoping he's going to send me a prototype. And if it does, you guys will be happy.
Sure, I will if it's Russian. I can't wait to see it. He's also doing some 16th scale stuff.
Yes.
That brings up the point of, we talk about these oddball and low interest kind of subjects getting done, but when you get some folks who have a vested interest in a particular subject matter, they're actually cranking out upgrades and replacement parts that are way better and way more accurate than what's in a lot of the kits. So
yes,
absolutely. That's been cool too.
With armor, you're seeing a lot of complete kits. I think where 3D printing in aircraft is right now, you aren't seeing nearly as many complete kits, but what you are seeing is an absolute explosion of upgrade for existing kits.
Yes.
And engines, cockpit interiors, stuff like that.
So Kentucky Dave, I love airplanes. I like, oh my God, I love mosquitoes and I love Zeros only when they're on fire. But
I'm sensing a British theme here.
Yes. Mostly mosquitoes.
There you go.
But in a 3D world, like, is there a lot of stuff going on there?
There are relatively few 3D printed aircraft kits. It's just not it for, I think, a number of engineering reasons. I don't think it's as common, although it may come to be that. But what you are really seeing is, just to take the Mosquito as an example,
which is the best plane ever, by the way.
Well, you're wrong, but that's okay.
No.
But Tamiya, Hasegawa, and Airfix all make really good Mosquito kits in 72nd scale. And with 3D printing, you have the ability to take those base kits and really make any version of the Mosquito from 1 to, I forget what the top mark of the Mosquito was, 3743, some outrageous number up there. But that is, at least in aircraft right now, where I think you're seeing the vast majority of 3D materials.
So it's an upgrade conversion kind of thing.
Although, and here's the other place you're seeing it, and this is kind of armor aircraft crossover, is all of the airfield equipment.
Oh, which is also very cool.
And lends itself to being manufactured like a 3D printed armor kit, like any 3D printed armor kit.
Yeah.
You're seeing everything from bulldozers to bomb haulers to
that's cool. That's totally cool. I mean, if you're an airplane guy and you're one of those people,
that's all right. That's okay.
Well, Brad, if someone was eyeballing a 3D printed kit and they'd never done it before, what would be the advice for somebody wanting to just have their first go? Where would you start kit wise, would you think, and that sort of thing?
All right. So 35th scale, I can't not say RTM. It is just the best. That Jan is awesome. If there's a variety, I mean, what do you want, right? World War One, World War Two, specialty stuff. That's the whole point of 3D kits, right? Is weird stuff.
Well, Brad, thanks for coming on the show and giving us your experience with these kits and sharing all that with us. It's a neat world out there with all these crazy subjects, and I guess I've just had reservations on a lot of them for the reasons we've discussed. And like you, I'm sure if you've been at this as long as I have, that we learned a lot of hard lessons back in the early resin days. So
yeah,
those marks, those scars still show.
Scars are still there.
I can mention
scars are still there.
Mike, I was there when you opened a box from a certain resin manufacturer way back a long time ago.
Well, there's a lot of those.
I just appreciate you guys, reaching out to me, and I mean that you guys put that little mark on the MT25. It meant a lot to me.
Well, you're welcome. It's just a really good model.
A very nice model. And the nice thing is you're seeing something you don't see every day.
That's the thing. I've always been, from when I was in San Diego, where I grew up, to Texas, to now I'm in Ohio. Everyone always says, if you want to see something weird, go see Brad.
Wait a minute. That could mean
misconstrued. Yes.
Never mind. Yeah. Well, it's good to talk with you, Brad.
Thanks, guys.
You're welcome. And thanks again for coming on. We'll look forward to seeing you in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, absolutely. Me and Dr. Dave.
Well, Brad, thanks for coming on, and we look forward to seeing you and Dr. Dave at the AMPS convention here in a couple of weeks.
Yes. And that's funny. Since we recorded that interview, I have had 3 separate conversations with 3 different modelers, all revolving around this subject, not printing 3D printing, but the construction and assembly of 3D printed kits. So it is a topic that is becoming more and more relevant as time goes on.
It certainly is. And the quality spectrum is kind of the big gotcha there. So
yes,
interesting stuff.
Bases by Bill is back with quality display bases that enhance any model. From U.S. and Japanese wooden carrier decks to custom-sized cherry hardwood bases, Bases by Bill display bases are available for any type of model and for any size. Oh, and have you heard? Bases by Bill is now a U.S. reseller for one-man army high-definition paint masks. These masks bring amazing detail to your model, even maintenance stencils. They have to be seen to be believed. And all one-man army products include free shipping. Check basesbybill.com to see the products. Bases by Bill for all your model display needs.
Well, Dave, it's time for the Bench Top Halftime Report. Man, I hope your update's better than mine.
Sadly enough, it's not. A, it's spring, yard work, etc. B, my riding lawnmower broke and I have to fix it. C, derby festivities and all the appropriate or all the things involved in that. D, my younger daughter had some minor surgery, which necessitated a couple of days away. And all of it conspired to keep me from getting much modeling done. I've gotten a little more progress on the Bearcats. I'm working on the landing gear, which are very simplified. But since I'm not adding a lot of detail to this kit at all, I am trying to play with painting techniques to do what I can to make details pop out. And so I'm giving a little more attention than I might otherwise to these landing gear. And I need my SAM. The SAM is still there. It
Yeah, it
just
is.
yeah, I know. And I need to finish oil treating the rest of the underside. And once I get that done, the thing will move very, very quickly from there. I just need to grab an uninterrupted 2 hours worth of time. And unfortunately, that hasn't been in the cards, but the next 2 weeks look good. And fingers crossed, when we talk about this in episode 141, I'm going to make a lot of progress.
So
How about
I'm going to hold you to it.
How about you?
Not a lot better. The flak pans and the KV85 have been stagnant since the last episode because of what I talked about in the front end in the model sphere segment of the episode. I've been doing some 3D modeling on the Reba Botan chassis, and I've been doing some more test prints, and I've been sending emails to people to try to get the missing pieces of this puzzle answered. And that's what I've been doing. It's close. I need to finish this. I need to figure out this one part at the front end of the chassis ladder to tie this thing together. And after that, I think I can move forward because I've got great information on all the steering and all-wheel drive transmission and stuff. So it should be able to progress. Now, whether I get to it or not in a timely manner, I don't know. But there will be no blockers holding me back from lack of information, hopefully.
There you go. Well, I will tell you that I am going to send you some STL files. I have some things that I'd like printed, and I want to make sure that your 3D printer at home doesn't gather dust, and like to keep it exercised. So I'm going to send you some STL files and see if I can get you to print some for me.
Yeah, we'll give it a shot, man.
All right.
Plastic Model Mojo is brought to you by Squadron. Head on over to squadron.com for the latest in kits and accessories, all at a great price and with great service. Are you a modeler on the go? Check out the Squadron mobile app for your Apple or Android device for easy shopping from just about anywhere. Squadron, adding to the stash since 1968.
Dave, Brandon and I have been playing email tag for about 2 weeks now.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, we got to get him back on here, man.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Well, the model releases have picked up a little bit.
Yeah, no kidding.
And it's faves and yawns time. So I've got a few.
I do too. I got more than normal.
I'll let you start.
My first one has been on in this segment at least 2 other times. It's Gecko Models.
Yep. I know what you're going to refer to.
It's another Vietnam War era street vendor figure set, and man, they are killing it.
Yes,
man, it's just becoming a gaping rabbit hole, man.
And I think
if I don't go down it myself, the ground around it is going to collapse. I'm going to fall in.
I do think we are due for a Vietnam War renaissance as far as modeling kits and dioramas. There was, back in the 80s, there was the first post-war surge of Vietnam-related modeling, and then it kind of fell away. And I think it's going to come back and come back hard.
Well, it's an interesting phenomenon, and I wonder if it has to do with the time elapse. And
I think it does, and the generations.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The generational, how far removed the current folks are to be able to think about this more objectively than emotionally.
Yeah, exactly. Well, not only that, but you've got a lot of 30 and 40-year-old modelers who are now talking with their 80-year-old grandparents who...
Or their parents, yeah.
Right, who served. And so either, their parents or grandparents who served. And so you're starting to get a lot more books on the subject. You're getting a lot more kits, both the diorama type like the Gecko or good kits. The 16th scale M113 is a classic example, as well as the Australian version of the Centurion that was used in Vietnam. I mean, you're starting to see more and more kits that relate to that period. So I think we're due for a renaissance in that area.
Well, I think it's certainly happening. I think it's certainly happening. But another thing to say about it is, it was, a couple of things. It was the first time this came to the American living room on the television.
Yes.
The war in real time. In addition, there's a lot of folks our age. I think it gets into this period, late 80s, maybe even early. I don't know when all these movies came out, but there was a slug of movies that came through Hollywood kind of all within 5 years of each other.
Yep.
Like Platoon, Full Metal Jacket,
Hamburger Hill.
And then there was the TV show. What was that?
China Beach.
No. Well, maybe it was China Beach. That was the nurse show.
That was the nurse show.
No, the other one with the
A-Team?
No, not God. No, but there was a rash.
Come on.
There was a rash of detective shows going back to Vietnam.
Magnum PI
and all those and
yeah,
all that. But that's neither here nor there. But I think we're at a point now where the emotion of all that period is tempered and it's becoming more of an objective thing. So really good stuff because, it's reflected in what Gecko's doing. Scooters, street vendors, all this stuff, they're kind of ahead of the curve. We're kind of just getting some of that stuff for World War II fairly recently through mini art and the likes of that. They are really putting out some really cool stuff.
Yes, they are.
That are lets you replicate just about any vignette of that era you've ever seen, either in a magazine photograph or a movie or whatever. But
I see a Vietnam vehicle in your future.
Maybe. We'll see. What else you got? What's your first one?
Well, Quinta Studios, who are known for their 3D decals for cockpits, instrument panels, etc., have announced a series of machine gun 72nd scale. Well, they're doing them in other scales too. Machine guns for aircraft. The Vickers K gun, the Lewis gun, US M250 calibers, a whole series of those. And, I am of the opinion that is, if you've got a World War II aircraft with one of those type of guns on it, I'm convinced that replacing that with aftermarket, really good aftermarket, is a big improvement.
Usually is.
Over what you get in most kits. So I'm happy to see these, and frankly, I want to see some of them in person to judge the quality. Next for you.
TACOM doing a fresh take on the Yog Tiger.
Yes, I saw that.
Big full interior one.
Yeah, you're going to wait for the non-interior, right?
Well, I'm probably mistaken, but somebody just did one. And I don't know if they came out with a non-interior first.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's a different manufacturer, but no, I don't know. This one's a pretty good one for an interior, though.
Yeah, it's got a full interior.
Well, I mean, but it's got the big swing hatches on the back of the fighting compartment.
Right.
You can open up, and you can open the two crew hatches on the roof to get some light in there, and
then put a little grain of wheat bulb. Well, not grain of wheat, but now an LED bulb in there to light the whole interior.
So there's a lot to it. Yeah, I don't know. It's probably not something I'm going to buy, but seeing a fresh take on that one look promising for a lot of people, I'm sure.
Yep, I agree.
What you got?
My next one is our friends at Kit Masks, Kevin and Janelle. The pace at which they are releasing new mask sets, we know they're a small cottage operation.
Yeah, it's him and her.
Right, exactly. And to make a musical reference, it's she and him. I am just amazed at the quantity of new items that they continue to put out. And then they're branching out into armor stuff. And every time I go on ScaleMates, there are new sets announced. And it's pretty dang impressive.
It is. It really is.
Yep. So what's your next?
Zimmy Models. Now, I bought their quad Bofors from our local hobby shop, Scale Reproductions,
Right.
a while back. They've come around and they got something kind of cool now in addition to that kit.
Which is?
It's an 8-inch, AKA 240 millimeter heavy gun, a heavy howitzer.
Oh, I saw that.
Now, they're calling it the M2A1.
Yeah.
And at the risk of talking out my posterior, I think that designation is incorrect. I think the gun is M1. I think the transport carriage for the transport for the gun carriage is the M2.
Gotcha.
And the transport for the barrel is the M3. That's what I think. Now, this is a big honking thing. That's not the Long Tom, which had a split trail. This was you disassembled it, you loaded it up, and you transported it, and you put it back together when you got to wherever you're going to emplace the thing. It's a really cool
Huge
kit.
gun.
It's a big gun. Probably has, and I just had not enough interest to know it existed, but I wonder if this thing's ever been kitted in anything else before.
That's
even
a good
resin.
question.
I don't know. Maybe it has.
And maybe our listeners can tell us.
Yeah, somebody set me straight. I don't know if this thing's ever been kitted before or not, but there's a lot to this. There's a lot of big balloon tires and a lot of parts. So really looking to see what that one looks like in the box once it's released.
Well, my next one is not a particular kit. It's a note about what's going on in the hobby for releases. The number of 3D printed figure companies is just exploding. Every time I go on ScaleMates or I go to Hannett's or whatever, in the new releases, there are 3D figures from companies I've never heard of. And of course, the problem is we talked about earlier in the episode, in the interview, is with 3D printing, quality is 90% of the game. And I would love to see somebody out there, some YouTuber, hint out there, do what Evan McCallum did with all the 3D printed track companies, where he got a bunch of different items from a bunch of different companies. I think there's like 15 or 16 by the time he stopped, just because there were too many new ones continuing to come out, where I would love to see some industrious YouTuber get 3D figures from all of these different companies and give us the good, bad, and ugly. Because as we noted earlier in the episode, in the interview, you're really kind of hesitant to order a pig in a puck. And so, unless you know somebody who's already got the figures from a particular company, or if you're lucky enough to have a hobby shop that stocked them, you're really firing blind. And I don't really like that feeling, but I would like more and more quality figures, and particularly quality 72nd scale 3D figures. So some YouTuber out there, take me up on my suggestion and give us a comparison review of a bunch of 3D different 3D figure company releases.
And hopefully you figure out a way to get them for free.
Yeah, well, if you can do that, so much the better. So that's it for me. What do you have?
I got one more. My last one, it's funny. I don't think we do this one roughly every other episode, right? So once every 2 months.
Right.
Faves and Yawns and the Tamiya H39, Hotchkiss H39 kind of fell through the cracks.
Yeah.
Because of when it was released.
Yep.
But we hit the M36 Jackson this time. And I'm sure there's quite a few folks who are ecstatic about this one.
Yeah.
I'm not one of them.
I like the M10 better than the M36.
I like the M18 and the M10 of the American tank destroyers. This is the least interesting of all of them. Yeah. That's my opinion. I don't know why. I think it's the shape of the turret. It's got something to do with that. I don't know. But like I said, I'm sure folks are going to beat the door down to get this one.
Yep. I agree with you.
Long overdue. So good on Tamiya for a couple of 35th scale armor releases this year already.
Yes, I'd love to see them increase the pace of their armor releases. Mike, we are almost at the end of the episode, and I assume you are almost at the end of your modeling fluid.
I am. I'm at the end of my modeling fluid. The glass and the bottle.
Okay.
The Walcott bottled in bond needs a splash of water.
Does it?
Yeah, it's 100 proof,
Gotcha.
which is where the heat kind of starts to pick up if it's going to do it. But I tell you, for 100 proof, this one straight up is really, really hot. A little bit of water makes it a little sweeter and kind of takes that burn off the back of your throat. Yeah, I probably wouldn't get this one again.
Well, you live and learn. That's how you find out. You sample these things.
Yeah, I'm kind of 0 for 2 on the Walcotts. Now, who'd you say this distiller was again?
It's Barton 1792.
Oh, very bad Barton.
Very old Barton, but yes, many people call it very bad Barton.
That explains a lot, actually.
It's a bad sign when very old Barton comes in a plastic jug. That is never an indication of bourbon quality.
It's not.
In case you listeners out there didn't already know that, if your bourbon is coming in a plastic bottle
with a screw top,
it's not good bourbon, almost assuredly.
Well, how's that hop explosion you got going on?
It's actually not bad. I may have been a little harsh last time in judging it. It's 8% alcohol by volume. It's Mirror Twin Brewing out of Lexington, just down from where Space Tango is located.
That's right. I can walk down there after work, and I'm probably going to do that tomorrow, actually.
There you go.
Probably not going to have that.
I was going to say, if you were inclined to, I would say this, while it might not be my first choice, because Mirror Twin has a whole lot of really good beers. So it might not be my first choice, but would not be the worst choice. It's perfectly fine.
Glad it worked out the second time.
It did. Well, now we are truly at the end of the episode, and there is nothing left but the shouting out. So,
I'm not going to shout. I'll shout out, though.
Okay, go ahead and shout out.
Well, always going to thank our contributors, Dave, the folks who choose to support Plastic Model Mojo through their generosity. And we've made that really easy for folks to do that. You can go to www.plasticmodelmojo.com, the official website of our podcast. You can click the support option in the menu bar, and that will bring down the selection of avenues which you can contribute to the show. Also, you can grab any of the show notes from any of the episodes, and those links are in there as well. So, folks, we appreciate it. It helps cover our expenses, and it just gives us the incentive to keep plugging along here and bringing you better stuff. So, Thank you very much.
And I second that. Thank you very much. I have 2 shout outs. The first one is rather obvious. Jeff Inch High Groves. Jeff, thank you. Thank you for thinking of me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to help save a whole lot of books and find them new homes. And thank you for thinking of both Mike and I when you went through the collection initially and grabbed a bunch of stuff that you knew that Mike and I would be interested in. You're a good guy, and I'm not the only one who thinks so. Thank you, Jeff.
And your other one?
My other one is Martin Pieta, who thought about Inch when he listened to the episode and heard that Inch couldn't currently drink alcohol, and thought enough to mention the Blue Moon, etc., that I described earlier. That is an example of the community that we have here. It wasn't about modeling, okay? It was about one modeler thinking about another modeler and wanting to tell him something that he found that they might find helpful that wasn't really related to modeling. And that's the kind of people we attract. I don't want to toot our own horn or pat ourselves on the back too hard, but this podcast has attracted a community of modelers who are really great people and very thoughtful in regard to their fellow modeler, not only as a modeler, but their fellow modeler as a fellow man. And I could not be more pleased. So thank you, Mark.
All right, Dave. Well, that's it.
That's it. Time to get going.
As we always say, folks,
so many kids.
So little time, Dave. Go get your bags packed for amps.
I'm good. I'm doing it, man.
All right.